Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. I am Dave Biddle. I'm very happy to be joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. All right, a lot to get into. Let's start with pretty much every sports book that I have seen. I haven't seen one that doesn't have Ohio State's over-under at 10.5 wins for the regular season. So every sports book I've seen has the over-under for Ohio State regular season wins this season at 10.5. Backs, if they lose 2 regular season games, something went really wrong like last year. I'm taking the over. I'm betting your house on it. What are your thoughts, my friend?
Well, I mean, please don't bet my house on anything, but I agree with you. I think that the Buckeyes look at the entire Ryan Day era up to this point, right? 2 years ago, they lost 1 game in the playoff. The COVID year where they made it to the national championship game, that was the only game they lost. So last year, they only lost 2 games. The Oregon game was an abject disaster. The Michigan game was an abject disaster, but both of which were the byproduct of a defense that Ohio State just spent millions of dollars on improved coaching on. So if we're sitting here and we're worried about Ohio State going 10-2, we have a problem, because at Ohio State, that's the equivalent of like missing a bowl game somewhere else if you go 10-2 at OSU. And I know that there's some good teams on the schedule and it's going to be challenging and all that. If Ohio State is an 11-1 or 12-0 by the end of the regular season, it's a disappointment of a year. And if that one is to the wrong one at the end of the year again, then we have major program issues. So yeah, the standards are different here. But if Ohio State is under 10.5 at the end of the regular season, there are problems. And we're going to have a lot less fun discussions about the state of the program next offseason versus right now, where I think most of us are treating that game in Ann Arbor as a bit of a blip, and we're looking forward to a much brighter future with a much improved defense.
Yeah, the schedule is tough this year. I mean, when you have a marquee out-of-conference game like Notre Dame, the in-conference schedule is tough. Obviously, the East is tough. You're playing all the teams in the East as usual. Then the crossover games, Wisconsin, Iowa. Who knows about Northwestern? They were bad last year, but their pattern under Fitzgerald's kind of been bad, good, bad, good, bad, good. So maybe they'll bounce back this year.
Yeah, this will be the year they could win 9 games, right?
Right. So, but still, I mean, I could see them dropping a game. And I've said this, if they go 11-1, but they beat Michigan, they win the Big Ten championship, and they're sitting there at 12-1. 12-1, Ohio State is Big Ten champ. Will get in the playoff, in my opinion, no doubt about it. So they can afford 1 loss. They just can't afford 2. And for those that are saying, come on, you guys are putting the, I'm sure most Buckeye fans agree with us. But for those that are wondering, come on, your expectations are too high for this team, saying they have to win at least 11 games in the regular season or go undefeated in the regular season. Are you guys serious? I guarantee you Ryan Day would agree with that. If you told him that they go 10-2, he'd be like, that's a failure. That's a failure.
Last season was a failure. Let's repeat that. Last season was a failure. We lost to Michigan. We didn't win the Big Ten. It was a failure.
I did fire the entire defensive coaching staff except for Larry Johnson and the offensive line coach.
Yeah. Last year was a failure. Last year was an F at Ohio State. There's no other way to put it. Now the Rose Bowl was fun. Yay. We had all the talented offensive players that went in the first round. That's exciting. Yay. At Ohio State, we watched the Buckeyes to beat Michigan. This is a national championship contender team. That's why they are what they are. If we set those standards any lower, we might as well call ourselves Minnesota, period.
Yep, I'm with you. Looks like some of our listeners are in agreement with us that the over will happen. I'm surprised that Buckeye fans agree with us on that, right?
Right.
All right, let's get into this. So camp season has started. Not a lot of extremely big news yet. Hopefully, we're waiting for commitments. But so camp started. The camp season started June 1st. They had a lot of Ohio State commitments there yesterday, which was kind of cool seeing them. But those guys have already committed. What's kind of stood out to you most so far from the Buckeyes recruiting camp season?
Well, what stood out to me most is that the camps haven't stood out. What stood out is that we're all sitting here wondering how much NIL money is being offered by other schools to all these kids at Ohio Site are chasing. The whole little Carnell Tate Twitter spat thing yesterday about you can go anywhere and be a first-round pick, right? It's going to be interesting because Brian Hartline had that tweet where he was like, life is about the mitigating risk and making what you think is the best choice for you and everything. The rumors going around about all the NIL money being thrown out there is going to be interesting. What I want to know is when NCAA football comes back as a video game, are they going to have a segment where kids have like their lists of their NIL offers from programs and everything? Because I think 24/7 Sports needs to have like a column of like, we have like our offer list from everybody and who's recruiting and from the schools. We need to have a expected NIL range because that's going to change the way that we really look at all this. And to me, that's the biggest thing. That's the story of the offseason is this can't be a normal season where we go, oh, here's camp season 1 and camp season 2 and camp season 3. And, oh, here's this recruit and he should go to Ohio State. Why would he go anywhere else? And, oh, those dirty Southerners are paying players and we can't do it. That's not applicable anymore, right? There's no more, oh, it's Auburn, we're going to lose this one, because we can pay people too now. So NIL is the whole story of all of this camp season. And none of this other stuff really matters.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm still waiting for Bill Kurelic to break a commitment here. Come on, Bill, get on it. No, Bill works his ass off. Unbelievable. He is just the Energizer Bunny.
Bill's breaking news is going to be like, Donato's announces commitment to, recruit who's not currently yet committed to Ohio State. And the guy gets on there and he's like, I am committed to the pizza place. And we're like, well, he's coming to Columbus because Donato's doesn't exist outside of Central Ohio.
There's some in Dayton. I can vouch for that.
Dayton is like an extension of Central Ohio. Okay.
I was going to say, I'm originally from the Dayton area, and when Donato's first came out in the 90s, it was the stuff. Like, it was like, you couldn't believe that was like a chain pizza place. And it's still decent, I guess. But
it's good. I will not hate on Donato's. And if they want to sponsor the Bucknuts Morning 5, we would love their sponsorship. Let me tell you that right now. Donato's is delicious. It's a slice of Ohio Kana.
It is. It definitely is. All right, let's get back into this. So I had the crux of the show the other day. I talked about, I don't like when the Buckeyes wear alternate uniforms. Now, especially for the Michigan game, okay? I'm okay if they have it in their contract with Nike that they need to do it once a year, fine. Do it against, a lesser Big Ten team. Do it against Arkansas State or Toledo. Toledo's a night game. If you have to do it once a year because of your contract with Nike, fine. And to make a little extra money for the program, fine. Don't do it against Michigan. We've seen so many hideous uniforms over the years and even if the uniform itself doesn't look hideous, it doesn't look like Ohio State. Okay, no. I don't need to go on my tangent again. I just meant to turn over the floor to you. I just can't help myself. Bax, am I wrong? Am I right? Should Ohio State wear alternate uniforms? Should they not? Should they wear them in the Michigan game? Should they wear them once a year for a lesser game? Your thoughts on the Buckeyes wearing alternate uniforms?
Well, the only upside to alternate uniforms is the 1 year Ohio State had those ones that were practically pink in Ann Arbor, and we still won wearing pink. But the reality is, if you're Ohio State, why, for the love of Woody Hayes, would you ever change the helmet? That's the thing that really gets to me.
Right.
Like, I don't like the alt uniforms, and I sound like an old fogey, and I'm only in my 30s, so I shouldn't be that old, but I sound like an old fogey. When you're Ohio State, you have an iconic uniform. Right? You have an iconic uniform. You should leave this, fancy schmancy uniform crap to the schools that ain't got no history, right? Like let Oregon be highlighters with bird wings sprouting off of them and Xbox controllers on your helmet and every other stupid thing that they want to do, right? That's their brand, right? If you're Illinois and you haven't done anything since Red Grange, then sure, go ahead. Wear whatever random alternate uniforms you want with, advertisements for whatever random place on it. But if you're at Ohio State, like if Nike wants to make us wear some butt ugly jersey against Toledo, sure. Heck, do it against like a Wisconsin or an Iowa if you have to. But the Michigan game, hell no. And what really gets me is we have the best helmet in college football by a mile. By a mile.
Yes.
And the Michigan game is when it's at its absolute best. It's got full Buckeyes all over the helmet. Nobody can match that look, right? If you're going to do it in a game where there's, maybe a third of a side of a helmet covered in leaves, all right, fine. It's stupid, but I understand the money side of it. The kids think it's cool, all right? Yes, I'm a boomer. Someone just commented on me, even though my parents were actually the baby boomers, not me. But
I'm not even a boomer, so yeah. I mean,
yeah. Okay.
Nick's a loyal listener. He gave a little smiley face too after he called us boomers.
But that helmet, man, back to this main point, name a better helmet in college football.
You can't.
Name one that's even close.
You can't.
When it's full of Buckeye leaves, right? When it's full of Buckeye leaves, that is the prettiest helmet in the sport, right? That is you go anywhere in America and you set that helmet down, right? And everybody instantly knows the Ohio State University. there's only like maybe 5 or 6 helmets that really have that kind of response, right? Unfortunately, our rivals have one, having stolen it from Delaware and Princeton. But like, other than OSU, Michigan, you put down the golden helmet, most people are going to think it's Notre Dame. How many other helmets stand out like that, right? Somebody would guess Florida because it has an ugly gator on it. Texas is a pretty iconic helmet. But like, if you put an Alabama helmet down with some numbers on it, nobody's going to know that, right? Like, a lot of these helmets, like LSU, you only know because it says LSU on the helmet. That's how uniconic it is. Ohio State's helmet is the best helmet in the sport by a mile. Quit effing with it. That's my opinion on it all.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right. One more that I wanted to hit, and then we're going to get to maybe some user questions here. G. Scott Jr., I could not be more impressed with this young man. His latest venture was going out to Marion Harding High School and giving an incredible speech to the Marion Harding football team, talking about the importance of perseverance. And G went through everything that he's been through at Ohio State, how he came and thought he'd be a freshman All-American. That didn't happen. Last year didn't get on the field that much. His mother passed away right before the season happened. He's been through all this adversity, and you have to persevere. And it was just such a great speech to these kids. And he's done some other really cool stuff. Like, you know, he helped a homeless man out, put him in a hotel for a couple nights, gave him $500. I don't think I've ever seen it where like a non-star, now maybe G will become a star, where Ohio State fans absolutely love somebody who's not even a star player. Like the love I see for G. Scott Jr. out there, and it's very warranted, is impressive from Buckeye Nation. Furthermore, it's impressive what G. Scott Jr. is doing. What an impressive young man.
I would say he's the most popular non-starter we've had since the days of Kenny G and his sweet, sweet jazz music.
Yes.
So there's your reference for the people calling me boomers. That was less than 10 years ago that Kenny G came in against Purdue and won the game in the undefeated season for the Buckeyes. But back to G. Scott here. If we bring it full G circle, I think he's going to be on the field this year. I think he's going to be really good. But that speech he gave is super duper important because, you know, a lot of us look at sports, especially when our kids play youth sports and aren't playing at a level like it's Ohio State. Sports is a character building thing. Sports is a metaphor for life, right? You know, you get knocked down in a football game and you get back up, right? If things don't go your way, do you pout about it and pack it in, or do you settle down, work harder, and grind at it? And that's an important lesson. It's an important mindset. It's an important mentality. That's why kids play sports, is to learn those lessons for life. And G has very clearly learned those in life. And sometimes going through adversity, you come out on the other end stronger. Now, you don't want the sort of adversity that involves losing a parent. I've been there, and that's a horrible situation to go through, and my heart goes out to him because he's even younger than I was when my dad passed. But, you know, I'm impressed with him. I'm rooting for him. We've always, I think, all liked him, especially since his dad was, so outspoken about how positive he is towards Ohio State. And, you know, we've had a couple Washington Staters come because of G. But this is a kid that, you know, like he said, he wanted to be here. He thought he was going to waltz in as I think he's one of the 4 big receivers in that class. And we all, you know, we're wondering which ones were going to pop. And then he comes to OSU. He doesn't get on the field. He has to change positions. Can you imagine the ego blow that is? You've been told your whole life, you're a star receiver, you're a star receiver, you're a star receiver. Hey, maybe you should change positions out here because you just can't hack it. And now he's potentially looking like he's going to be one of the big tight ends for Ohio State this season. And, you know, with him being physically a little bit of a bigger, wider guy than some of those other guys, maybe tight end's his spot where, you know, his future at the professional level could be. So G. Scott's a guy that I think everybody roots for. I think that everybody's excited to see do well. And that's the thing about Ohio State. We can talk about NIL. We can talk about expectations. We can talk about this and that. End of the day, it's exciting when you see good people representing your program. I mean, I have my degree that has a block O on it, right? I think, you know, it's not hanging up behind me, but you know, the things you see there, they matter, right? And I think G. Scott represents a lot of the things that we hold as ideals for a university very well.
You've got to get your diploma in your background too. You got the Ohio flag is very well represented. I love that. It's the best state flag in our country. Not that I'm biased or anything, but it's the most unique. You know, it's the only one that's like a pennant shape. Mm-hmm. I love our state flag. We got to get your Ohio State degree in your background too.
You know why it's not here? It's because it's at my job next to my professional engineer's license, and I have to point out to people who come in wanting to hire us about, see, this guy's smart. Maybe that's the only reason it's not here.
Yeah, get a duplicate, man. You know, get a duplicate. All right, let's hit some user questions here to finish the show. This is from David on YouTube. At the conclusion of camp in June, will Ohio State be over or under 4 extra commits? What do you think? Over? I'm going to go under 4. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they go 5. I'll go 3.
I'm under. I think it's only 2 because I think things are getting dragged a little bit more because right now the NIL side of things makes everybody sort of more interested in their extra choices. So I'm going to be cynical and say under, and probably 2 is my guess at the end of the month. But I hope I'm wrong.
Hopefully Bill Kurlick texts me and says, no, they're going to have 7. Okay, no, he's probably not going to do that. All right, this is from Ed on YouTube. Why did Ryan Day ever think Kerry Combs was a defensive coordinator? That was a sad part of my last 2 years. Yeah,
you both, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, I call this the Peter principle in full effect. I mean, Kerry Combs was very good at what he did as far as being a defensive backs coach, a recruiter, a motivator. I'll never forget, we're sitting there before the season last year, and Kerry Combs said to us, I'm not very much of a tactician. This is before they turned over the defense to Matt Barnes. They said, Matt Barnes and I make a good team because he's more of like the tactician, the technician, and I'm more of the guy gets the guys motivated. I'm thinking, that's not what you want out of your defensive coordinator. I don't know what Ryan Day was thinking. Well, I do know. He was thinking too much about recruiting and not finding the best coach. So at least he's corrected his problem. I think Jim Knowles is a Grand Slam home run higher, and he better be. But I think that's what he was thinking, Bax. What do you think?
Yeah, so Kerry Combs, you mentioned the Peter principle, which is where you're promoted to the point of failure. Kerry Combs is an awesome cornerbacks coach. He's an awesome recruiter. He's an Ohio guy. We all have a very soft spot for him as being the enthusiastic guy on the sideline to the 2014 national championship. But I think Ryan Day was too focused on just winning the battles off the field. And he was also at a time, coming out of the salad days of the Hafley year where the defense was phenomenal. And I think Ryan Day, as an offensive guy, had a little bit of we'll get a ton of talent and it'll work itself out. And he's coming from the NFL, and look at the scheme we can run. And it did not work. And I think Ryan Day learned a very valuable lesson. And, this is an example in the past we've talked about, who replacements for coaches were. During the end of the Tressel years before, when we talked about Urban coming in, maybe not, and who the other replacements were going to be, we always said Ohio State is not a school to be your first time as a head coach, right? Because this is not a place where you can learn on the job. The reality is that's Ryan Day's learning on the job. That's Ryan Day's learning on the job as a head coach was his choice in Kerry Combs. And that's just the reality to it. So I think that he's hopefully learned that lesson. It's a very valuable lesson to learn, especially when you come from one side of the football that, the other side is equally important. And as unfortunately we've learned in the last 2 years, our defense took a major step back without a strong guiding hand on the rudder. So I think that's what Kerry Combs is essentially ended up being under Ryan Day, was Ryan Day learning on the job.
Got a text from Bill Kurlick saying the biggest thing to come out of this is real. I just got a text from Bill Kurlick. The biggest thing to come out of is all of the new offers that have gone out. So that's the biggest thing. There's been a bunch of new offers. It's coming from the dean himself. That's the biggest news, is all of the new offers going out. Let's hope they cash those offers into some commits. We had the over under 4 commits the rest of the month. Let's hope they go over. Bax and I are taking the under. It's called reverse psychology, my friends. All right.
Yeah, that's right. We can't set anybody up for failure.
Let's hear it. Okay. Let's hit this one from Rick on YouTube. Why hasn't the staff had a tough talk with any of the 15 linebackers on the roster when most won't see the field this year? Even accepted a transfer, talking about Chip Trayanum. Here's the thing, they're 1 under the limit. Like, it's not like they need to clear space. I don't know. I would like to see them get, just for depth purposes, an offensive lineman in the portal. And again, not somebody who's going to challenge for a starting spot, but somebody that can add depth and a corner, because they like their 6 scholarship corners, but they only have 6 scholarship corners on the entire roster. They have 3 scholarship kickers. So I don't know. I mean, I hear what he's saying. There are a lot of linebackers on this roster, and you can probably pick out a few that you are not probably aren't going to see the field. I mean, Jim Knowles' base defense only has 2 linebackers on the field. Now, they will go with some 4-3. They will throw the same linebacker out there sometimes, but I don't know, man. I mean, they are 1 under, though. What are your thoughts on linebackers and not having a tough talk with some of them?
Well, you hit it on the head. We don't need to have a tough talk with any of them. I'm sure they all know where they stand, right? But there's no reason to chase any of these guys off with a come to reality conversation. We're not at 87 scholarships. We're not at 94 scholarships like an SEC school is at this time of year, chasing kids left and right. The reality is Ohio State's at 84 scholarships. Why are we trying to chase anybody off? Because 1 or 2 injuries later, you might need those guys. Special teams are critical. So that's the simple answer. They don't need to have that talk. They're going to let it work itself out. That's how it always goes. And anybody who's still here after spring football, in all likelihood, understands where role is going to be going into the season. So it's just not needed right now. I agree with a lot of linebackers, but I think when you don't have any really clear answers, you're going to have to figure all this out. And by the way, if Hicks ends up starting like he potentially looked like he was in line to by the end of spring, these guys are going to work their way out of here anyways, a lot of these older guys, because they know if they're getting passed by a true freshman on the pecking order, then there's not going to be a lot of playing time in the future.
We have a comment here from Yakov. Lloyd Carr's 5-star quarterback grandson is expected to commit to Notre Dame. Yeah, you have a lot of heavy hitters putting their crystal balls in for CJ Carr. Is it CJ Carr? Is that his name? Do I have that right? Huh? Yeah, CJ Carr, who is in the 2024 class, so the same class as Dylan Raiola. He is a 5-star. He's not ranked as high as Dylan Raiola, who's the number 1 quarterback in the country. But how about that? I mean, geez, that would be like what? What would that be like? Jim Tressel's grandson not coming to Ohio State? Like, it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, Jim Tressel would not let that happen if his grandson was Ohio State level. Let me tell you that much.
No, and the Michigan fans are not happy about that, and rightfully so. If you get on there, there's a lot of schadenfreude going on Bucknuts linking to the Michigan boards. They have like a 10-page thread they had to lock up talking about CJ Carr very likely shutting down the process and going to Notre Dame. That's crazy.
Kind of like remember when Jack Nicklaus's grandson went to Florida State and we were all upset?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. The tight end.
O'Leary.
Yes.
That's somewhat comparable, but Jack Nicklaus never was part of our football program. He's just the greatest golfer of all time from Upper Arlington, went to Ohio State, but moved to Florida, and that's why his grandson stayed there. So like that was a little more understandable, I guess. You know,
at least at least the grandson was like born and raised in Florida. Like this is different. CJ Carr lives in Michigan. Yep. I believe lives pretty close to Ann Arbor, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe he does. Yeah.
I just can't get over how they're gonna.
This is Jim Harbaugh in full effect. I wouldn't go to school there either because he was trying to leave. It was National Signing Day and he's interviewing with the Vikings. The guy doesn't want to be at Michigan. He didn't. This is like that time Les Miles accidentally won a national title at LSU when he was trying to leave. So, like, that's the thing with Harbaugh is that everybody's looking at it like, wow, that was a fluke of a year. All right, let's make some goofy little Puma / chains and stuff. But long-term wise, why would you go there if you're a quarterback? Because all he wants to do is run it out of the Maryland eye with 3 tight ends, and 6 of them moving in motion. Or like, he's not going to be there in 2 years. Who's your coach going to be? And if you think Gaddis was the offensive brains there, he left because he thought he was taking the job. So for a program that had the best year ever under Harbaugh, it feels like that there's not a lot of foundation. There's a lot of quicksand.
No, their recruiting is a mess right now. You look at, they only have 6 commits in their 2023 class, and the guys that are their top targets, I mean, they're not favored to land a lot of those. This is not going to be a good class for Michigan at all. I'm sure everybody listening to the show doesn't have a problem with that. All right, great stuff from Bax. Really appreciate it, Bax. Thank you to all the listeners out there for tuning in to the show. Really appreciate you guys. As usual, if you like the show, like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review. All that stuff really helps. Thanks again to Bax. Thanks to all of you. Hope everyone has a great day.